Olá, bem-vindos ao PhysioCast, podcast sobre ciência, fisiologia humana e medicina. Eu sou Luiz Fernando, aluno do curso de medicina da Universidade Federal do Pampa, aqui em Uruguaiana, Rio Grande do Sul. E aqui a gente conversa um pouco sobre pesquisa científica, realizada principalmente por pesquisadores brasileiros situados aqui no Brasil ou no exterior. Pontualmente, aqui a gente tem uma pesquisadora do Canadá, Ashley Nemec-Bakk. O Rafael vai introduzir ela um pouquinho melhor para vocês. A gente também, então, vai trabalhar com pesquisadores internacionais e ter o prazer, então, de acompanhar, trabalhar junto e discutir um pouquinho sobre as experiências. E a gente deseja que vocês, que estão ouvindo a gente, que a nossa conversa seja inspiradora, principalmente para os nossos estudos, nós como os acadêmicos.
Olá, então, pessoal, hoje, dia 12 de junho, dia dos namorados, estamos aqui gravando o nosso 5º episódio da 4ª temporada desse projeto de extensão, o PhysioCast, no qual eu e a professora Bruna Ciolin somos coordenadoras, né, eu, professora Lidiane Dal Bosco. Então, hoje nós estamos aqui, juntamente com os acadêmicos de medicina, Lucas e Luiz Fernando, com nossa convidada, Ashley, e o nosso colaborador, professor Rafael, pesquisador Rafael, lá no Canadá. Passo a palavra, então, para o Lucas, né, que vai...
Olá, pessoal. Eu sou o Lucas, aluno do 6º semestre de Medicina aqui da Unipampa, e também no nosso backstage hoje a gente tem o Vitor deixando certo tudo para a nossa gravação hoje, né?
Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. Hoje teremos o prazer de conversar com a jovem pesquisadora canadense Ashley Nemec-Bakk. Ashley nasceu na cidade de Thunder Bay, uma pequena e importante cidade localizada na província de Ontário, no Canadá. Ela é formada em biologia, ciências moleculares, pela Lakehead University, universidade essa que recebeu muitos alunos do programa Ciências Sem Fronteiras. Além disso, a Ashley realizou seu mestrado e doutorado em biologia. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with young Canadian researcher Ashley Nemec-Bakk. Ashley was born in Thunder Bay, a small but important city in the province of Ontario, Canada. She earned her degree in biology, molecular science, from Lakehead University. At the same university, she completed her master's and her PhD in biology. Desenvolvendo seus projetos de pesquisa buscando entender o funcionamento do sistema cardiovascular em modelos experimentais, a Ashley agora investiga os problemas que as viagens espaciais podem causar à saúde cardiovascular. Ashley sempre foi fascinada por tudo que se relaciona ao universo e agora faz parte de um time de pesquisadores que estudam os efeitos das viagens espaciais sobre o corpo humano. Focusing her research on the functioning of the cardiovascular system using experimental models, she now investigates the problems that space travel can cause to cardiovascular health. Ashley has always been fascinated by everything related to the universe, and now she is part of a research team that studies the effects of space travels on the human body. Ashley finalizou agora, em 2025, seu estágio pós-doutoral na University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, na divisão de saúde radiológica do Departamento de Ciências Farmacêuticas, a qual ela foi uma das candidatas que recebeu a concorrida bolsa de estudos do Instituto de Pesquisas Translacionais para a Saúde Espacial, um instituto cujo objetivo é manter os astronautas saudáveis durante as explorações no espaço, vinculado com a NASA. Ashley just has completed her postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, in the Division of Radiation Health with the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences. She was one of the select recipients of the High Competitive Fellowship from the Translational Research Institute for Space Health, an institute whose goal is to keep astronauts healthy during space exploration, and which is affiliated with NASA. Agradecemos o seu interesse em compartilhar as suas experiências com os nossos alunos e ouvintes aqui na cidade de Uruguaiana, no sul do Brasil, assim como os demais brasileiros que escutam o PhysioCast. Certamente irá motivar muitos dos nossos jovens e demonstrar que eles podem também ir atrás dessa área de estudo. Ashley, we thank you so much for your interest in sharing with our students and audience in Brazil a bit of your experience, which will certainly inspire many of our young people here in Brazil the possibilities to study and research in this amazing field.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, seja muito bem-vindo ao nosso podcast. É uma honra contar com a tua presença aqui hoje. Eu gostaria de agradecer imensamente por aceitar o nosso convite, por estar aqui para compartilhar o conhecimento e as experiências com a gente. E a gente está bem animado para essa conversa. So, Ash, welcome to our podcast. It's an honor to have you here today. So, I met Ashley, I think it was 10 years ago, when I was doing a piece of my PhD in the same lab that she was doing her PhD in the time. And in the time we worked so hard, so many hours. The work never finished, but we had a lot of fun together too. So I would say thank you for accepting the invitation, for being here with us. And also congratulations for the position that you get, because it's so hard being where you are today. So thank you, Ash, for being here with us.
No problem. It's good to see you, Bruna.
Yeah.
And Ashley, to get our public to know you a little bit better, I think I would like to answer some things that are a little bit more personal, like who was Ashley before joining university? What were your dreams, aspirations, and where did you came from?
So, as Raphael said earlier, I'm from Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is a very small city in northern Ontario, but we do a lot of really interesting research here. But so before I got into research, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I just kind of chose the courses I thought were interesting and the ones I enjoyed, which usually were biology, chemistry, any kind of space and earth sciences. I would take those classes if they were available. I've always been interested in sports. I was really into volleyball, and I still play volleyball now, actually. But I think, like most young people, you always kind of dream about being an astronaut, right? But so that was always something I thought that was out of reach, especially from being from a small town in Canada, where you don't do a whole lot of space research in Canada, unlike the US, where they have a lot more funding for that kind of research and everything. Yeah.
That's so interesting, Ashley. Me and Lucas, actually, we are in the volleyball team for our med school here. So
Really?
we enjoy a lot of volleyball. And now I think I would like to ask you about your academic career. Could you tell us about your academic journey and what led you to pursue scientific research?
Yeah, so like I said, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, so I just kept taking courses that I found interesting and that I enjoyed. So I landed up going to university for biomolecular sciences, and there I thought about becoming a veterinarian, and I got a job at a clinic and then decided that that was not for me. So then I just kept thinking about, like, what do I enjoy? What would be rewarding to me? So some of the courses in university, they have a lab component, right? So whenever I was doing experiments in the lab, I really enjoyed it. And I was always really interested in like discovering new things or uncovering mysteries or, just like learning about the unknown always interested me. And at the school here in Thunder Bay at Lakehead, they have courses where you get to do just lab work. So I took a few of those courses and got to do small studies for the Northern Ontario School of Medicine with my, who would be my PhD supervisor, Dr. Caper. So working with her on a small research project kind of sparked my curiosity in research.
And we got to know a lot about your academic journey when preparing for this interview. And it's such an amazing journey. And let's dive right into it. So we would like to know, how did you first get into studying the effects of radiation on development and cardiovascular health?
So I was always interested in cardiovascular research. That kind of hits home for me because there's a lot of cardiac health problems in my family. So I always was, that was one of the areas that I was interested in researching just because it was personal to me. So that's how I got into working with Dr. Caper, because she does cardiovascular research. And while I was working with her on my master's degree, the professors at that university got a lot of funding to do a collaborative project on the health effects of radiation exposure during pregnancy. So she asked if I wanted to stay on for a PhD after my master's. And I thought the project sounded really interesting, especially because I feel like there's not a lot that's known about radiation. So that kind of piqued my interest because you're kind of investigating into the unknown, and hopefully by investigating into radiation, you can help people. So that was I always found that rewarding. So especially with radiation during pregnancy, there's not a whole lot that's known. And a lot of the research in radiation, they just extrapolated from high doses. So if like Chernobyl or the atomic bomb in Japan, they've just kind of taken those events and then extrapolated back to assume like it's a linear effect from radiation. But from recent studies, we've found that that's just not true. So with more research going into low dose exposures, it's possible that we can change like how the public views radiation or how the doctors view it as well. So I'm sure you're learning you don't want to expose pregnant women to radiation because it can be detrimental, but yeah.
And
Just one thing before Lucas continues. I remember to listen Dr. Capin talking in different occasions about the exposure of the pregnant women to radiation. And I remember one day that she was presenting, and I was thinking, oh my God, this also can have us to increase the radiation, because seems that radiation is just these big things that happen, like you say, bombs or this kind of thing. Do you know, which kind of occasions are in which way we can have this radiation, like in normal life, this low dose?
Yeah, so I'm sure the med students know you get exposed to radiation from different medical procedures, like just a chest X-ray or CT scan. But you also get really low doses when you're travel or doing air travel. So just from being closer to space, you're getting, like, it's not a lot, but you're getting a little bit more radiation than you would on the ground surface.
Yeah, perfect. And so now diving a little bit more into your recent work, we would like to know what exact kind of radiation you study today and how does it affects the astronauts. Like you said, when you're closer to space, you'll be exposed to more radiation. And what's it do to the body?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part of that question.
What the radiation does to the body of the astronauts? What are the repercussions on their health?
Okay, yeah. So for the research I've been working on currently, I'm looking at galactic cosmic radiation, which is what the astronauts will be exposed to while they're doing space missions at the International Space Station, or hopefully in future missions to the Moon and Mars, if that ever happens. But so the type of radiation, galactic cosmic radiation, it is just pretty much ions. So, from the periodic table, and they are launched into space from supernovas that have occurred outside of our solar system. And since they're traveling at such high speeds, their electrons have been stripped away. So you just have a very charged particle, which can be very detrimental when it crosses through the human body. Since they have such high energy, they can strip your atoms of their electrons, which can cause DNA damage, could lead to cancer, can also just really affect your immune system. And there's not a whole lot that's known about this type of radiation, since the astronauts at the International Space Station are largely protected from radiation due to Earth's magnetic fields. So it kind of acts as a shield from radiation. So with the future missions that are going to travel beyond our low Earth orbit, we need to understand better how this radiation is going to affect astronauts' bodies, so we can prepare, make sure that they have the right protections or the right shielding, just so that they can come home healthy. So obviously we can't send anybody out there to study them, right? So we use a ground-based model of this type of radiation. So at NASA Space Radiation Laboratory in New York, they've developed a galactic cosmic radiation simulator. So this machine can produce a variety of ions at a very, it is very similar to what you'd expect for the astronauts to come across in space. So with using that facility, we can test this type of radiation using rodent models, as well as cells, and as well as like human samples, like blood and plasma, just to get an idea of how that type of radiation is going to affect the different, your different body parts and everything. Yeah.
I'm just curious for the people that will hear us, Ashley, this device that mimics the cosmic environment is huge. A person can get inside, or is a small device just for rodents and cells?
Oh, it's a huge particle accelerator that it actually goes for a few miles underground, and then so it kind of like the particles speed up around the track, and then they come down the end of the track, and then we have our mice housed at the end so that the ions can pass through them.
Very nice, because now in Brazil you have the, I guess, the biggest this machine that I forgot the name now in Brazil now. Do you agree?
Oh, really?
Yes,
Like
it's in
the
Brazil.
particle accelerator, Sirius.
Yeah.
Sirius,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, check after, actually, it's amazing. It's the biggest, I guess, the biggest of the world. There is
Really?
something like this. Yes, almost sure.
Wow, I'll have to check that out. That's really cool.
I'm really curious about the type of the energy. I read something some time ago. It's X-ray, gamma ray. I don't remember the type of the energy. Could you talk a little about this? The type of the energy, the gamma rays. What type of energy it could generate?
So they're all ionizing energies, but gamma rays is much lower than what you would see in space radiation. Although you can find gamma rays in space, but like the galactic cosmic radiation is specifically found in space, and it is just a very high energy. But depending on which atom is going through the astronaut, so the heavier ions typically have a higher energy. So like iron, for example, or oxygen, those two have a much higher energy than a hydrogen or helium ion. But all of the charged particle radiation is a much higher energy than gamma rays or X-rays. So gamma rays and X-rays can also be dangerous, but they are at low doses considered not detrimental to human health.
Thank you.
That's actually so cool, because I think some of the things that you talked here, we only see in movies, like a particle accelerator. So that's really cool. And you told us a little bit about the protection to prevent the astronauts of receiving this type of radiation. Like how do you do it to them to prevent? Because for me, that obviously I do not know so much about the subject, but radiation just doesn't like it just pass through. It's my my vision of radiation. How do you prevent it? And is there something is something related with a magnetic field, like you said?
So I know for in the space shuttle, they use aluminum shielding, and that protects them from a lot of the radiation in space, except for the charged particle radiation. That is very difficult to shield, and that's why they're putting in a lot of research right now into like how to combat this type of radiation during long distance space travel. There also have a lot of funding going into drugs that could maybe be of like a preventative measure against the detrimental effects of galactic cosmic radiation. Or there is, I think they were looking into one idea where they would have kind of a little shelter in the shuttle, where if there was going to be an influx of radiation, say from like a solar flare or something like that, they could just open up the little capsule and then like put something over their head as, you know, like kind of like a bomb shelter in the shuttle. So that was an idea that they're coming up with as well. But it's very difficult to shield the galactic cosmic radiation. So there's a lot of research going on currently about how to combat that.
So a lot remains undiscovered yet. of all about this radiation, and you've said a lot about like the immunologic system, and I would like actually to know a little bit more about the cardiovascular system, because I've seen that there is a huge focus on that system. So could you tell us a little bit about the effects and all the implications on the cardiovascular system, and why is such a huge focus in the research?
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the main areas that is being researched into for space health. So not the radiation can have a detrimental effect on your cells, but in space you also have microgravity. So microgravity has a large effect on your cardiovascular system, because when you're on Earth, most of your blood pools at your lower extremities, right? So when there is where there's less gravity, your blood is being shifted up towards your chest and your head. So this is going to cause a lot of people do adapt to it, but there are some individuals that might have some health effects from this. So it's just you're going to have a lot more cranial pressure just from the fluids going up to your head. Your heart's going to be a bit more taxed trying to pump the blood throughout your body. So there's a lower pressure, I think. So really microgravity with combination of radiation could just lead to a lot of cardiac health problems. Where I think even one astronaut had like retroactive flow in their blood. I think there's an article about that where if you go to it wasn't correct, but it said something like your blood flows backwards in space. Just one individual there, they had a bad reaction, but luckily they had the correct drugs on board to, kind of stop what was going wrong. So he ended up being okay. But yeah.
And is there something that an astronaut here on Earth can do to prepare for these effects on space? Like before a space mission, there is something that he does to prepare for it?
Oh, yes. They have extensive training. They have to be in like the best physical condition of their lives. And they train a lot. At the one facility, they do a lot of underwater training. So it kind of mimics not being in zero gravity, right? So they'll do little tasks underwater in the scuba gear and everything. So I think, it's quite extensive training to make sure that they're able to do the tasks they need to do in the space shuttle and on the International Space Station. There's a lot of like motor activities they need to practice, which sometimes it looks like they're just playing video games, but that's really what it is like up in the station. They also they really have to be a jack of all trades, because they have to conduct experiments, they have to be pilots, they have to do their own like medical tests. They got to get their researchers their data. So I think it's quite extensive. And I've also realized that I'm much too high maintenance to be an astronaut. So I know if I sleep with the wrong pillow, I have a sore neck. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got into a little bit talking about astronauts and everything, and we have talked a little bit about it, but it's such amazing achievement that we want to talk a little more about it. You were awarded a fellowship from the Translational Research Institute for Space Health, supported by NASA. So like it's so amazing what is like working there, what is like working at NASA.
Oh, thank you. It was a very good experience. I really enjoyed it. Not just doing the research for NASA, but part of that fellowship, you got to be kind of part of a team. I was always with the other winners of the fellowship. We would meet every month, and we would have guests come in. So that were like leaders in the field of space health. So you'd have like the chief scientists of NASA's Human Research Project spoke to us. We had a very good network of people we could reach out to and ask for advice, or they would help us with our projects. And it also opened up a lot of opportunities for me. I got to travel to a few different conferences and get to meet a lot of other experts in the field, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't get that fellowship. And it really is just an excellent program for postdoctoral fellows, especially if you're interested in space health. And they fund a variety of research. So I'm more biology based, but they also fund like robotics research, as well as one of my colleagues had an anthropology degree, and she was trying to, thinking more about the mental health side of what astronauts have to go through. There's also medical students. So NASA has a lot of interest in recruiting medical doctors, because they do need people like that up there in space as well, especially when you don't have access to hospitals, right? So that's a really good asset to have as part of the mission. I also got to travel to New York to work in the NASA Space Radiation Laboratory. So I got to see how the galactic cosmic rays were produced and make sure that I understood what was happening. And yeah, and everybody there was really great. And yeah, it was a really great experience.
Can I have a question? Actually, just for us to understand, in this research, many research that you met doing your postdoc, majority of them was from US, North America, Europe, or there are some researchers from South America, some where?
So the majority of the researchers I've talked to were Americans, but there were other international people that were working in the US or are now US citizens, because NASA prefers US citizens to work for them since it's a government organization. But for like the postdoctoral fellowship, most of us were international postdocs. One person was from Italy. I was from Canada. One person was from China. There were also other Americans though. So for kind of the junior level positions, it's open to pretty much anybody. Yeah.
Working at NASA, was it challenging for you?
It was definitely challenging. I know anybody in research, I'm sure we can all share the challenges that just come with working on studies. There's also a lot of pressure I found, especially since there's a lot of money involved in these projects, because it's very expensive to send mice to space, or very expensive to run the particle accelerator. So it's always a bit more pressure than any other study I worked on, for sure. But I think the positive parts of working there outweighs any kind of pressure or stress that was that I felt while working there.
And how was the process of sending these rodents to the space? And what were the findings about this research?
The projects I worked on, we didn't send them to space. We used the ground-based
The particle accelerator.
Particle accelerator, but I did work on one project with a group from another university where they sent rodents to space. So they have special cages that they have to be housed in. So they'll start housing the mice in the special cages here on Earth. And then they have to be flown to the space shuttle and then launched into space. So they just have an open cage where they can just kind of float around like astronauts. And there are videos online you can look up with the mice in the cages at the International Space Station. And surprisingly, it only takes them like a day or two to get comfortable. And then it looks like they just kind of zip around their cages like they're having a fun time. But I think the travel, though, I think is hard on them. So I know the one study that my colleagues were working on, when the mice came back, they couldn't walk. They would just sit on the treadmill. They just like couldn't reorient themselves after being in microgravity. But there's not a whole lot of these studies just because it's very expensive and it takes a lot of time for the astronauts to work with the mice. So it's, so you just have to hope that your project gets picked and that they have enough time to take care of the mice and collect the data and collect samples from the mice. But it does seem like they usually lose muscle mass in their legs since they're not putting a lot of pressure on them. And a more molecular level, there is DNA damage and oxidative stress occurring, as well as a lot of changes in the immune cells. And I think it's well known that space travel affects the immune system, but it's just unclear how or why these changes are occurring. So there's still a lot of research going into that as well. Mm-hmm.
How many days do they stand there, the rodents?
It depends on the study. There was one study that I know of where they were only there for a week, or there's another one that they were there for 30 days. I think there might have been a longer study, but I can't remember if that was funded or if it's already happened. I haven't spoken to them, but it really depends on the study. But I know the animal studies are very time consuming, and so I'm usually there for a shorter amount of time.
I find it really funny thinking about like mice floating in space. I will search later the videos. But back here on Earth, you said that you also work with the particle accelerator, with research on rodents. So what is it like, and what are the findings too?
Yes, for the studies on Earth, right now we can only expose the mice to the galactic cosmic radiation for a short amount of time, just because it's very expensive, and the machine just can't handle producing those particles for a long period of time. Because when they're in space, they're going to be exposed to low dose radiation over their their whole mission. So if they're doing 6 months or 12 months, they're going to be exposed to radiation for 6 months or 12 months. But we cannot run the accelerator for 6 months or 12 months. So the mice are only exposed to radiation for 8 hours or 24 hours. And that's one of the drawbacks of doing the on-Earth study. So at least for my cardiovascular research, I found that there wasn't a lot of changes occurring after those doses of radiation. So we were wondering if maybe the amount of time is significant for how your body reacts to radiation. So for the studies that I worked on, we did not find any detrimental effects in the cardiovascular system. But yeah, so I think there's room to improve the on-Earth models that we have. So hopefully one day we can extend that time just to see if that has a significant effect on health. But
yeah, as you said, it's a field that requires a lot of money, a lot of time, and there are a lot of technical limitations. So what keeps you motivated to work in such a specific and challenging field?
So I know we were talking that in research there's a lot of stress and pressure, and I'm sure everyone, just this day and age, you feel like you need to do everything really fast, and you need to, get your work done quickly and come up with answers fast, and it can be overwhelming. But I always try to remember to make time for the things I enjoy. So my favorite part of research is going to conferences. I love going and meeting other researchers, talking about their research, talking about my research. And then usually when you go there, you come up with new ideas, or you might give someone else a new idea. And I just really enjoy that part of research. So I was really lucky to work with my postdoctoral mentor, because she was really involved with conferences as well. And she liked doing that kind of thing. So I attended a lot of conferences during my postdoc, so that I always felt more motivated after I would go to those meetings. I also always are just reading about the new research that's going on, especially in the field of space health, just because, especially at this time, there's so many new things happening. There's so many more plans to do, NASA wants to go to the moon again and go to Mars, which is really exciting. And there's just a lot more advancements happening. So that also keeps me interested in this field as well.
And a little bit about the mice. I really like them. I think putting them in like a machine like particle accelerator is way expensive compared to like putting them in environments of microgravity. And I would like to know, you've already said a little bit about loss of mass and muscle. How do these changes affect and translate to the human body?
Oh, yeah. So in some of my studies, we also simulate microgravity. So I'll just tell you a little bit about how we do that. We have specialty cages that we house the mice in, and they're in a harness. Their back legs and hips are in a harness, and then they are raised off the ground at a 45-degree angle so that they can't put pressure on their back legs. So this is kind of mimicking microgravity. So they're also losing muscle mass since they're not putting pressure on their back legs, and they're also shifting the fluid from their extremities to their head and chest. So this is how we mimic that on Earth. And we can also use this type of model for patients that are losing muscle mass, or patients that are on bed rest. They have similar muscle loss in their legs as well. So any kind of research being conducted at NASA also has implications for other scenarios here on Earth. So if we're looking at fixing the muscle loss in the legs in mice from space travel, we can also use the technologies or the drugs that are being studied in other areas on Earth. I hope that answered your question.
Yes. And do the rodents, like, they are prepared previously to the experiment? Like, is there something that is special compared to other research?
For the study with microgravity, we put the mice through like an astronaut training. So I'll put them in the specialty cages and have them hanging or at an angle for one day, and then I'll check in on them, make sure that they're doing okay, and if they look like they're having a hard time, I'll put them back down. So I just kind of put them through a training session until they're comfortable and they're able to move around better and make sure that they're getting to their food and water and everything. Yeah, there's a lot of it's a lot of work to work with the mice just to make sure that they're healthy and able to move around okay with those different machines.
And you said a little about the videos that they kind of adapts fast to the absence of gravity when floating around. But like, what are the changes there that are in their behavior? Like, do they behave kind of funny when in space and when you simulate microgravity here on Earth?
Oh, I don't typically do behavioral research. I don't know if I can answer that one for you. But there's a lot of work in that area though. I do know it's out there, but I'm not sure what they found.
It's okay.
I have one question, and talking a little bit about the effects. Like, you told us that some astronaut had that effect that the blood was flowing backwards. Is there some kind of this effect on rats, like some surprising effect that you would like to tell us?
Oh, I think it's really interesting, that question, because it seems like it's the effects that happens in humans really depends on the individual. And the models we use with mice, the mice are very similar in genetics. So often we don't see anything surprising. The only thing I have seen is sometimes they develop cataracts, but not all of them, only some of them do. So I'm not really sure why that happens sometimes and not in just in some of the mice. But I know radiation does affect your eyes, but it's interesting that it doesn't happen to all of them, just a few. And I also know that some of the astronauts have a lot of trouble with their eyesight as well. But then there was one astronaut that going to space actually corrected her vision. So after going, I don't know if it was something to do with the pressure, but yeah, after, it's just really interesting about how it just really depends on the individual. And I think that's going to be a big area of research in the future.
Of course, I don't know lots and lots about the subject like you, but I imagine it could be because of the blood pressure. I think when you are placed in a context of microgravity, you will have a lot of the blood flowing to your head, and maybe I don't know, like uh, the arteries receive more blood and there is congestion, and maybe that's why uh, there is that development of cataract. And uh, you've talked a little bit about these effects on people and how all of your studies translate into like the person living here on Earth. Uh, and I would like to know a little bit more of that. Like, what were the major findings that your research bring to like the person actually living here?
Well, I think in my case, for my studies, we're finding that at the doses that of radiation we're giving the mice, there isn't a detrimental effect, at least at the time points that we're looking at, which is, I guess it's a good thing, because the astronauts possibly won't have cardiovascular complications while on long distance space travel. But then this is only one type of model that we've used on Earth. So definitely needs to be supported by more evidence before they draw any conclusion that maybe the cardiovascular system isn't affected as much as they thought, or it's certain individuals are more susceptible to cardiovascular complications. So those were our recommendations to NASA at the end of this study. So, which is probably a good thing, and they can feel more comfortable sending their astronauts to the moon.
And what about cancer? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think mice are more susceptible to cancer than humans, and that's why they are hugely studied on that subject. Uh, so, do they present any signs of developing that type of disease on your research?
Yeah, cancer is one of the really big concerns for NASA. There's been a lot of evidence that radiation increases your risk of cancer. There's a lot of research going into that area. We did not find any evidence in our studies. There was maybe 1 or 2 mice that developed some kind of cancer, especially in the spleen. But once again, we didn't see it in all of our mice in the radiation groups, which not sure why it was only a couple that were showing signs of cancer and not all of them. But yeah, so I need to repeat studies and confirm the results. For the mice, it depends on the kind of mouse that you're using. So there's a lot of different genetic modifications that different mice can have. The type of mouse I used was the C57 black mice. And those mice are actually more resistant than humans. But there are other kinds of mice that are more susceptible to cancer. One of the projects that my supervisor was working on was developing a genetically modified mouse that was more similar to our humans, how humans develop cancer. So they were crossbreeding regular C57 mice with knockout P53 mice. So P53 is the master regulator of your cell, right? So it tells your cell if it needs to die, basically. So having that mutant mouse that will have a weaker P53 gene should kind of have a similar reaction to how humans react to radiation-induced cancer. That makes sense. Yeah, so it really depends on the kind of the mouse's genetic background, how they all develop cancer.
So Ashley, it has been great talking to you. But for our last question, we would like to hear your advice a little. So what advice would you give to youngsters like us who want to pursue a career like yours in space biomedicine?
Well, I would say go for it, because this is a really great time to get into this field. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of funding going into it. And you don't have to be like someone with my background. The field's looking for a variety of people, especially like medical students. They're recruiting medical students or nurses. They also like researchers, pilots. I think if it's something you're passionate about, you should look into it, because there is probably a position for you there. Yeah.
Was so nice this last sentence that you say, if is your passion, go, that your position is there, like something like that. was so nice. Ashley, so I just want to say thank you. And you know that I don't know how to explain this, but here in Brazil, it's like NASA. I told you this before. NASA, it seems too far to us. It's like it's NASA. So I don't know how I can explain it for you, but also we have a joke here that when something is incredible, we say call the NASA to they say it. So it's like a joke that we do. And because NASA, it's so far off our reality, something like that. And it's so incredible and amazing and wonderful that you get this position and you went there and you work so hard to be there. So yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, Verna.
And also, we know that work with science is no easy. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of work. And I can imagine that work for NASA, it's hard so many times that usually do. So yes, just congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know if Rafa and the guys want to say something.
Yes. In this meantime, Ashley, that we were talking, then I was searching here about the Sirius particle accelerator and the NASA Galactic Cosmic Ray Stimulator. Is different. They are similar, huge equipments, but the purpose of our machine in Brazil, the Sirius, is to produce intense X-ray and other electromagnetic radiation for scientific research. And in NASA, the purpose is to stimulate radiation environment. The machines are similar, but they are produced in a different way with different.
The applications are different too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you can come work here with us.
Yes.
Yes, I told her she can come as visitor professor here and stay with us for some months.
That would be amazing.
I want to say it's very inspiring to talk to someone clearly enjoys the work, the scientific research, In addition, contributing so much for the understanding of physiology and new insights about the human body in specific conditions, or the research with rodents, but a lot of information applies to human health. It's very, very inspiring. And thank you very much for spending your time, for sharing your precious time with us here. And we can follow your adventures in research or your contributions to science in another space, like a social network. You have something, you use Instagram to share your contributions, your adventures. Could you share with us? We appreciate that.
Yeah, I use LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram as well, though. I can share that with you for sure.
Thank you.
And another thing that I forgot to tell you, I am, in your honor, I am using a Toronto Raptor. It's not Lakehead Thunderbolts, but it's something.
Yeah, it's Canadian.
Canadian.
Very nice.
Lucas and Luis, if you want to say something to finish, and in the end, Rafa.
Thank you, Ash. Like, it was so fun to talk to you. The subject, I think it's really cool to everyone to listen. It's very interesting also, and I hope you had a great time talking with us. For me, I surely had a great time, and it's always amazing to interview the people that our professors contact here on our podcast.
Yeah, I
Thank
would
you.
just like to thank you too. Thank you for spending your time with us, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, because it was an amazing experience for us.
Oh, thank you guys. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. And you guys have to look up the mice videos.
Oh yeah.
Because they're pretty fun.
Thank you, Ashley, so much. Então, envie suas opiniões e sugestões através da nossa rede social, @PhysioCast. Também não se esqueçam de nos seguir no Spotify. E até o nosso próximo episódio.